Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me. Tonight, I'd like to start off with a simple question of who wants to be a millionaire? I mean, who doesn't, right? I'm sure many of us have aspirations ourselves of winning the lottery. But if you let's assume for the evening that you have to work in order to become a millionaire. There's a couple of ways to achieve this. One, of course, you could work 100 hours a week, and over time, eventually, hopefully, you'll have enough to consider yourself a millionaire. At the end of that, however, if you had no time to enjoy being a millionaire, would it be worth it? To kind of rephrase this from a different perspective, to think about something else is, let's say you can make $1 million stuffing envelopes at home. It sounds like a pretty cushy job, right? I mean, it's a pretty easy, mindless task to simply stuff envelopes at home. However, it's not very fulfilling. You might feel like you need to do more with your life. Um, my name is Scott Moore, and basically, I'm a returning student after over a decade from being in school originally. I've worked several different jobs over the years in a variety of environments that kind of lead to much different balances between work and life and how those work. What I'd like to do tonight is kind of pass along. First, let's define what work-life balance is exactly, and a couple of anecdotes. Then we'll move on to why work-life balance is important to you for a number of reasons, besides just my free time versus my work time. And finally, a couple of pointers for selecting a job to allow you to achieve and maintain work-life balance. First, I'd like to read to you a definition from Wikipedia. Work-life balance is a broad concept including proper prioritization between work, meaning career and ambition on one hand, and life, including health, pleasure, leisure, family, and spiritual development on the other. There's actually another article that I ran across that said it was the definition of work-life balance, but it truly ended up being an entire article, which tells you this is more of a concept than an easy definition. To highlight a couple of points from this article is, to summarize it, is work-life balance does not mean an equal balance. Your best individual work-life balance will vary over time, and there is no perfect one-size-fits-all balance you should be striving for. And finally, you cannot get the full value from life without both achievement and enjoyment. So that kind of leads back to the initial questions we asked in the introduction. Now that we've got an idea of what work-life balance is, let's talk about why it's important. Um, the first, number one symptom that you associate with, hey, somebody's overworked, is that they may feel tired and fatigued. But there's a number of health issues that go along with it, direct and indirectly related. First of all, if you're working, say, 60 hours instead of a standard 40-hour week, for short time periods this may not be so bad, but obviously over time this is going to increase your stress level, which of course has a number of effects on your body. Secondary issues are what comes indirect. If you're working too much, you may not have time to, say, cook a home-cooked meal, for example. So you may be eating fast food a lot. You may forego, say, man, I'm really beat from work. You get home, you're tired, and you go straight to bed, and now suddenly you haven't done any physical activity for the day. So that also is negatively impacting your health. Another thing that kind of plays into this is you simply aren't as productive. So obviously your 41st through 60th hour isn't as productive as your first 40 because you're starting to get burnout at that point. You're past what you would normally consider a standard work week. And then finally, prolonged periods of time, so it's a vicious cycle. You actually become less productive during your first 40 hours of work during the week also because that fatigue just kind of builds up over time. Employers should consider this important as well. Employers that allow their employees the opportunity to achieve work-life balance also see higher productivity rates from employees, which is good for them. But also, too, employees don't get burnout and, say, leave the company. They're able to attain employees more readily. So now that we've talked a little bit about why this is important, the question that I'm sure, or I hope is on your minds now is, how do I get the work-life balance? Initially, this starts with simply selecting the right job. So think about, make some decisions about what you consider important, and then be sure to choose a job that kind of fits in with what you require is important. If a lot of home time is important, of course you're not going to want to work 60 hours a week. You may be commuting is an issue, etc. like that. You don't want to pick a job that's 2 hours away because now you've got 4 hours out of your day just driving. Also, too, once you're in a position, be sure to kind of make sure things get on your schedule for personal time and work time also. So for personal time, for instance, make sure that you've got some time on there for some rest and relaxation, meeting up with friends for a night out, or even a hobby, something that else that interests you. Make time for it. You know, if you want to take guitar lessons, for instance, once a week, if that's important to you, then you should make sure to get it on your calendar so you don't miss out on that opportunity. Also at work, be sure to manage your time well. Schedule what's important. Think about what do I need to do today, and kind of stick to it and prioritize those items first, so that when the clock hits 5, you're not like, okay, I still need to finish this up before I go home. You've scheduled your time properly to prevent distractions and make sure that you achieve that daily goal, and now you get to go home at 5 instead of having to work late in order to accomplish that. So we're running out of time here. I'd like to just kind of wrap up everything that we've talked about. First, we talked about what work-life balance is, and prioritizing between and balancing work priorities and life priorities, and also that these really convey a sense of both achievement and enjoyment are both important in order to achieve this balance. Secondly, we talked about why this is important from both personal time and relaxation, and also achievement with work and life, work and home life. Also, numerous health factors, productivity factors for you as an individual, and also productivity from the perspective of the company. And finally, a couple of tactics for being able to do this. Everything from making decisions about what's important, thinking about using these decisions to guide you when you're selecting a job, and then also setting some goals and boundaries once you're in a particular job. I'd like to read a quote from Steve Jobs' commencement speech to Stanford in 2005, and this really talks about how he prioritized this time. And basically this reads, "If today were the last day of my life, would I want to do what I'm about to do today? And whenever the answer has been no for too many days in a row, I know I need to change something." This is a great example of someone successfully living by this philosophy, and in doing so, not only achieved great success from their personal life, but obviously Steve Jobs, as the founder of Apple, also achieved great success in his career as well by making these things a priority for his home time as well as his business time. I hope this information has been helpful to you too, and hope you're all successful, and maybe you can become a millionaire regardless of whether or not you win the lottery. Thank you, and good night.